In this video, I'm going to show you how to create some custom controls for the legs and the feet. Now, you can do a lot of the animation with the control points, and that definitely helps, but the custom controls are going to take it another step further and make it even easier. So I'm going to start off by creating a line from the top viewport. I'm just going to make kind of an outline for the foot. Go ahead and close that spline. We don't want to enable it in the render, but we do want to enable it in the viewport. It needs as minimal number of sides as possible, so let's just make it 3, and it doesn't need to be that thick. It'll be fine to make it like that. So I'm going to rotate it around. Okay, since everything is kind of at the origin, it's actually pretty much in the right place. We're going to use this to control the leg and also the foot. And I'll show you how to set that up. I'm going to also make this one blue so that it matches the leg controls. And I'm going to take this last point and I'm going to link it to this controller. Actually, before I do that, I want to check something. Let's take a look at the local orientation. All right, so this is going to create a problem. Notice how the local orientation for this is different from this point. Yep. I'm going to go over here to I need to click on Effect Pivot Only first. Then select Alt-A. And I'm not going to move the pivot point, but I do want the orientation to be the same. So I'll hit OK, turn Effect Pivot Only off. Now you'll notice that the local orientation for my custom controller is the same as that. Now I'm going to take that point and I'm going to link it to here, to the controller, and you'll notice that now it doesn't mess it up. So if I wanted to lift up the foot, I can just grab this controller and lift it up. I can also turn it, so it's going to be a really handy way that I can actually mess with that. But before I'm going to actually unlink it here in a second. And the reason for that is because to save myself work, I actually want to mirror this over so I can have it on the right side. So I'm going to go to the front viewport. Let's mirror it. I'm going to make a copy, and we're going to offset it so that it is underneath the right foot. And I'm going to make that one green. Now I can go ahead and make this, I can link this point to that one, and I will link this point to that one. Now that we have our custom controls created for both of the feet, we are going to create something that's going to allow us to actually manipulate these control points all from the axis of this custom controller. In order to do that, I'm going to add a modifier called an attribute holder. Now that I have the attribute holder, I can go into animation, and we're going to go to the parameter editor. Now it's very important that you deselect add presets option, and we are also going to name our first parameter. We want it to edit. Now notice how it says range from 0 to 100. So this is important because if you don't go into the negative direction, then it's going to limit you to only being able to turn one direction. So I'm going to go negative 100 to 100. And the rest of this should be fine. So I'm going to click Add, and you'll notice that it adds toe X to our custom attributes. So I'm going to continue to do this, but this time I'm going to go toe Y and toe Z. Ball X for the ball of the foot. Ball Y. Ball Z. Now we will do ankle X, ankle Y, and ankle Z. Now before I do anything with this attribute holder, I'm actually going to copy and paste it over into this one. Now I don't think the Control-C, Control-V works for this. So if I hit Control-C, come over here, and Control-V, let me see here. Now see, it's trying to actually just copy the line, so that's not going to work. You're going to actually have to right click on the attribute holder, go to Copy. We come over here. I had to select that and paste. It should bring it over. So if it crashes, make sure that you do the audio, that you go up here and go to Open Recent and just open up the top one. But then you need to make sure that you also go back here and go to Save As, Scenes, and overwrite your original. Otherwise, it's going to just keep saving to the recovery file, and then it's not going to recall everything. So I'm going to try that again. So I'm going to copy that attribute holder, then paste it here. Okay, so now it worked. All right, so now to use that, we have to select, actually we're going to right click on that first point controller, the point controller for toe. And we're going to go to wire parameters, transform, because we are going to be transforming, we're going to be changing the rotation of the X parameter for that point. And we're going to select our attribute, our custom controller, and we're going to use to control this the attribute holder. So we need to go to Modified Object, Attribute Holder, Custom Attributes, toe X. So we have toe X, and we want this to control that. So I'm going to click on that arrow, hit connect. I'm going to do the same thing for toe Y, connect. The same thing for toe Z. Oops. Actually, I want toe Y to be that one. Same thing for toe Z. Okay, so now if we go over to the attribute holder and we change the X, you'll notice that it actually controls it right here. The same thing for Y and the same thing for Z. If you ever want to zero it out, just right click on the wheels over here. Now you're going to do the same thing for the ball and for the ankle for both of these feet. So remember, it's right click, wire parameters, transform, rotation, X rotation, modified object, attribute holder, custom attributes, ball X. Got to hit connect. Now I'm going to pause the recording and let you take care of the rest of that. And then in the next part of this recording, I'm going to show you how to create controllers for the knees. Okay, really quickly, I actually wanted to show you something interesting that happened here. And this is a common error that a lot of people will see, is that sometimes when you connect to, notice how it changed the bones, how it flipped. So that's actually a pretty simple fix. I'm going to undo it. I'm just going to hold down Alt and freeze the transform for that point. Now I'll still have to drop this down again, and remember this is going to be the, not the frozen rotation, but the zero Euler, and we need to connect the Z. In fact, I probably just for good measure, I'll go ahead and connect the other two as well. Okay. So let's see how that attribute holder holds up now. So we have ankle. So it works fine for the Y. I guess that's just how the X works because it doesn't affect the other ones. And then there's the Z. Okay, so it actually does work as expected. Okay, if you did this correctly, you should be able to go into this attribute holder and you can change everything pretty much from here. Oh, looks like I need to fix a couple. Doesn't look like this X and the Y is, the Y and the Z for the ankle is correct. So simply come back in here, go to wire parameters, make sure it's transform, rotation. Maybe I need to freeze the transform on that first. So let me go here. Let's go to wire parameters, transform, rotation, zero Euler, XYZ. Now it's going to look like this if you've frozen the transform. So don't go to frozen rotation. Actually go to this one. I'm going to go to X and go to modified object, attribute holder, and this is going to be the ankle X. Okay, so now let's test it. Each one of these should transform. Yep, it does. And I'm just going to zero these all out. For good measure, I'm going to test the other foot too. Okay, so looks like we're good to go. Okay, so now let's take a look at the knee. So I'm going to actually create just a simple circle, actually. I'm going to create kind of a controller that's going to stick out in front of the knee, and we're going to use it to be able to kind of rotate the knee in whichever direction we want. So I'm going to go to the top viewport for this. I'm going to go to circle, and we don't need to make it huge, but we do need to make it attainable. I need to be able to select it pretty simply. So let's, you can alter the radius there. You can also change the thickness a little. I think it may be a little too thick. 3 sides is fine. I'm going to turn on angle snaps. Now I'm going to rotate this. by holding down Shift. That way we can make another line. I want to make it exactly 90 degrees. Just going to make that a copy. And then I'm going to do it one more time, turning it 90 degrees this way. Make that into a copy. And the reason I did that is so that this, basically I just kind of made this controller look like that. That's really pretty much it for that one. So I'm going to come over here and go to Convert to Editable Poly. And then I'm going to attach the rest of them. Doesn't really matter which one you select first. You're just going to basically just attach them all together. Then I'm going to come in here and we're going to change it to blue. And then I'm going to do an alt align to the knee. Actually, I'm going to select that, alt A to the knee. Like for the, well, I guess I don't need to rotate it. It's really just kind of more of a positional thing. So actually a shift, a quick align would work for this just as well. Okay, and then I'm going to do a, I'm going to shift and hold this to the, pull this to the right to make a copy. And look at me forgetting to work with the layers. At least I'm making them in the helper section, but you should not have anything that's called line 1, line 2, or circle 3 or circle 4. So I'm going to need to change that in a minute. But let's change that to green. I'm going to do Shift A. Okay, so now those are both in place. I'm going to select them both, go to the left viewport, and I'm going to just move them out a little bit in front of the knee. Now I'd like for this to actually move along with the foot controller. So whenever I lift the foot controller, this will lift along with it. So I'm going to go ahead and just link that one to this. I'm going to do the same thing for this one, linking it to that foot controller. Okay, this is going to make it so that if I lift this foot, the knee controller is going to go along with it. Now, particularly with these two, I'm going to go back to the local so we can see all the local axes. I don't want it to move any direction except for left and right, so I'm going to go over here into the Hierarchy tab in the link info, and we're going to freeze the X and the Z axis. So now it can only move from left to right. I'll do the same thing with the other one. And now the point of this is that we wanted to be able to turn the knee, right? And believe it or not, that controller is actually within the IK chain. So if you select the IK chain, you'll need to go over into the Motion tab over here. And if you look down where it says IK Solver Plane, Swivel Angle, pick Target. It says None. We're going to pick that. We're going to do the same thing to the other IK chain. None. We're going to pick that. Okay, so now if I actually grab this and I move it, you'll notice that it swivels the knee. The same to this one. Okay, so your leg controllers are now complete. And technically you have actually learned pretty much how to use all of the tools that you're going to be using throughout the rest of this tutorial, in a matter of speaking. Now, granted, the complexity of it and the placement of things is going to definitely add a challenge. So I'd recommend following the rest of the tutorials. But once you see how to do something, go ahead and feel free to pause and complete it, and then just you can move on from there. So you don't have to watch everything in its entirety. Now, be careful. I recommend that you do not scale anything when you're working in the rigging. Now, if you do, just make sure that you freeze your transforms, but it's just a lot simpler if you don't scale anything. And besides, everything you can kind of change the size just by going into the parameters from like here, for example, for the bones. So there really is no need to use scaling.